15 years ago, it was the biggest phone in the world. The President of the United States was using it. All of his top officials were using it. It was number one in terms of security, but what happened to the BlackBerry that made it so obsolete so quickly in comparison to the iPhone? Most notably, we're going to get into all of it, guys. The BlackBerry originally debuting all the way back in the late 90s and then really coming into its own as the only legitimate option for a businessman in the early 2000s. You can see its absolute peak was 2011, where it sold over 50 million devices in that year alone. What's even more interesting is you can see it was beating out the iPhone even right after the iPhone released 2007. You can see quarter one of 2009, it doubles the iPhone. Quarter three of 2009, it's still beating it, all the way up until 2010 when the iPhone takes over. So what really happened? Why was the BlackBerry not able to evolve at the iPhone's level? I think it mainly has to do to a development issue, unfortunately, when you look at the way BlackBerries work versus iPhone. iPhone, you've got the entire screen. BlackBerry, you had the Storm debacle where people were saying they would return 80 or 90% of those phones. I went to the current BlackBerry website, or at least that's what I think it is, because I was met with what I would say is the equivalent to like one of those, you guys know cryptocurrency altcoins? That's what the current BlackBerry site looks like today. There are no phones on the market. The last one they officially released was in 2018. They had so many different models: the BlackBerry Bold, the BlackBerry Storm, the Storm 2, the Tor, the Style, the Torch, the Bold Touch, and then BlackBerry 10 was released with the Z10, the Q10, the Q5, the Z30, this coming right around 2011, 2012, and then they switched to the Android smartphones, the main one being the Key 1 and the Key 2, with the most recent one being the Evolve X, which still is very expensive if you're looking to buy it off of Amazon or eBay. Brand new, it'll run you right around $800. But guys, it is very important right now with the BlackBerry, the movie coming out. I think a device like the BlackBerry, unfortunately, when it really stopped producing phones and it shut itself off back in 2022, there was really no need for this type of a device on the market, but I do think this is something that's quickly gaining demand. It's the idea of kids or adults with a social media addiction getting a work phone. And that's exactly what the BlackBerry was back when it was number one on the market and back in 2008 and 2009 when the iPhone was still really developing all of its features. Of course, now what Apple has done is very ingenious. They've intertwined everything. Your iPad connects to your iPhone connects to your Mac connects to your MacBook, and so on. It is a very genius design by Apple. It makes it extremely hard for any competitor to compete because it is so much more easier to buy all Apple products because they're all connected rather than buying a PC and you've got an iPhone and you can't use, AirDrop or anything like that. That is really where they get you. And they also do have very impressive devices for sure. The technological gap between the iPhone and BlackBerry, the main issue being the touch screen with Apple. It was the entire screen and you just had that one home button. Originally, people thought that was kind of ridiculous. It's dumb, but quickly that caught on, and it caught on so much they completely eliminated the home button. There are no real buttons except for the power and the volume, and even those can be adjusted in different ways. So getting back, you're taking a look right now at one of the final models of the BlackBerry. This was an Android Evolve X, and I think when people, think about BlackBerries, they would not guess that this actually was a legitimate BlackBerry. I'm guessing people will go back to the Storm, one of the BlackBerry 10s, but there is a growing market. I don't know if it's going to be BlackBerry or Nokia or whoever it is. The idea is you need to pitch to people that have a social media addiction. We obviously all need phones. Even kids that are probably 14 or 15, you could make an argument need phones. I think it's an issue when adults, parents give kids that are 10, 11 phones. That's a big problem, but it happens. Technically, you don't even need a phone. You give them an iPad, it's the same problem. But how do we solve young kids, the TikTok addiction, adults constantly going on Twitter, constantly being slaves to the YouTube Shorts algorithm, the TikTok algorithm, the Twitter algorithm, the For You culture that we're in? And that's what I call it, because originally that For You page started with TikTok and now it's been transferred to Twitter, and you don't have to follow anyone. You're going to be shown the most controversial stuff. It is constant dopamine. It's viral tweet. It's 7-second clip, 7-second clip, over and over and over again. When you're showing that to a 13-year-old, there's going to be some issues with his development, more than likely. So how do you combat that? I would propose, probably not Blackberry, because they did shut down in 2022 and it is hard for them to work. They can technically still work if you get a SIM card, but it's one of those where it's like you need to download an app onto it. Maybe another phone, but I would say there is a big market right now that I do think adults would turn to, not only for their children, but also for themselves if they have an addiction. Get a phone that is very functional, very fast. It's amazing with texting. It's amazing with email. It's good with Googling stuff, but there's no TikTok, there's no Twitter. It is simply for, and also the other thing I'll say, we need a privacy phone. Bottom line, what we need is some type of $50 phone that we can have, and it's a phone number. We get an extra phone number, and you keep, whoever your most notable contacts, whether it's family members, friends, very close people to you, those are the only people that have that number. I do think it is important people have multiple phones rather than just have one iPhone. Of course, it depends if you're someone that, I guess it depends on your job. Generally, I would say more than one phone is necessary, so maybe Blackberry should try making a comeback, but, we're talking about the real killer was the iPhone. There's no doubt about it. The giant touch screen, in looking back on the history of it, it was really the iPhone 4S that was the fatal blow. And I saw this was 8 years ago. Someone said this on why the Blackberry failed. They failed to adapt. Blackberry was the only option for business users, really. Then the iPhone came out and suddenly everyone wanted an iPhone. But tech people still liked the Blackberry due to security features that were really, really important. So they stayed, and that's really why the Blackberry still had staying power in the market as late as 2011, 2012. I would say the Blackberry probably most notable for the Obama presidential run. Obama always had a Blackberry. It was like he had some type of deal with them back then, but that was really, everyone had a Blackberry even in 2023, or I don't know if it's 2023, but I saw Trump, they all issue, it's like government Blackberries they get issued because they're so private and so safe in comparison to the iPhone. But I would imagine that they don't use that anymore, considering BlackBerry shut down everything prior to the Android phones. You can still use them, but it's very hard. And as the years went, as the iPhone screen got bigger, it got faster, the charging got better, the BlackBerry really stayed stagnant and had a few really failed releases, and that contributed to it completely dying so suddenly. If you look at some of those graphs on it, it was completely dead by 2016, which is crazy considering it had a peak in 2011, especially in comparison to the iPhone in terms of total revenue there. So that is the official story of the BlackBerry. It was a failure to adapt, and really, if BlackBerry was smart, they should have, I don't know if there would have been a market back then for it, but they should have said, listen, the iPhone, especially for younger kids that are getting them, I guess there really wasn't a market, because this is just something that's happening now with young kids and the iPhones and just the dopamine hits they get from looking at TikTok and stuff. It is a real problem, and it's like you need a new device that completely eliminates that. that's only used for text and call, and that's originally what the BlackBerry was about. It was a business. It was great with email, better than the iPhone. That's why it was in more demand than the iPhone, especially for business owners, people that were answering emails, people that were taking phone calls. But over time, the iPhone was just so overwhelmingly better and more easy to use. The BlackBerry became completely obsolete. We'll have to see what ends up happening. Maybe there'll be a phone like it, but just looking at their website, it is completely dead, and they have not released a phone in virtually 5 years. So guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.